Welcome back to Unsolicited Advice from Toxic Bubblegum. I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
And today we're talking about representation, specifically the gay kind, in celebration of Marlon Bundo,
Yes.
who I love.
Our episode this week is dedicated to Marlon Bundo from BetterBundoBook.com.
I guess we should provide some context. For those of you who don't watch John Oliver.
For those of you who are not following the savior of America, John Oliver, Italian Prime Minister.
And future President of the United States.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how we can get John Oliver elected. Anyway, the HBO's Last Week Tonight host, John Oliver, has released a book about Mike Pence's rabbit Marlon Bundo falling in love with another boy bunny to beat Mike Pence's book
about rabbit who sits in on meetings, or what? I don't know.
I don't know what the actual Marlon Bundo book is about.
It's supposed to be educational about the vice president, but he's a homophobe, so nobody cares about him.
And he's, on the book tour, is going to, a bunch of, places that support gay conversion.
Of course!
Therapy. So he's,
literal torture.
Literal torture.
That's fine.
So, John Oliver has stepped out ahead, of this, is outselling the original Marlon Bundo book, and is being generally great. So we decided to talk about representation for bunnies and humans and...
I'm both of those things.
That's true. And Alan.
And Alan.
This is the Alan podcast.
Welcome to the Alan podcast starring Alan and... Oh, God.
No, but we're really happy with John Oliver. If you want to look into the clip, you can go to Last Week Tonight's YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's on their YouTube channel.
You can read about it angrily in any kind of conservative news outlet right now, because a lot of people are not so happy.
Yeah, because...
and you can buy the book at, as we mentioned, BetterBundoBook.com, or FocusOnTheFirmally.com.
Which they also own.
Which is great. And all of the proceeds from the book sales, the ebook sales, and the Audible sales goes to support the Trevor Project, which helps... it goes to support suicide prevention for the LGBTQ community.
The Trevor Project is really, really great. They do a lot of great work. I think it's also the... the AIDS Network, I think it also supports?
Yes.
Which helps to educate and provide help for people who are AIDS positive, which is sort of a big thing in the LGBT community. It has a long history there. But yeah.
And those are all really good things. And it is a children's book for children. If you have a child in your life or are still a child in your life, I bought a copy for me.
I'm probably going to buy one after we're done recording, if we haven't already bought a copy for the house.
It's just real important.
It's very important.
And the money goes to a good cause.
Right.
So.
You're doing good and also pissing off Mike Pence.
Good.
Which is also good.
It's just double good, honestly.
Honestly, it's very good. So you have a quote.
I do.
Start us off with.
Our quote, which I definitely had prepared, because we didn't come up with the theme in the car on the way over.
Whoops.
We are not what other people say we are. We are who we know ourselves to be, and we are what we love.
Oh, I love Laverne Cox. I love her so much.
So good.
So, yeah, I guess, I'm gonna start off by, I am a trans dude. I was assigned female at birth, and, then, around when I was in college, I figured out that wasn't actually what I was. And so I explored my gender identity from there, and I use male and gender-neutral pronouns. I'm also bi. So, I'm a little bit... I have a couple of things. I have a couple of stakes in the community, just as a reference point for where I'm coming from. Double is being an asshole over there, because she wants to be. You done?
No.
Of course not. But yeah, so that's my point of reference for all this. I have many opinions.
That's good. I'm a lady. I was.
You are a lady.
Yeah, assigned female at birth. I am female. That I am comfortable with that. I am, however, very pansexual.
Into all the fun stuff.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at in this.
So we've both got stakes in there. So I guess the first thing we should talk about is, I guess we can either start with like our favorite representation, or we could talk about like the ones that are like super important to us.
Yeah, do you want to start with the super important ones?
Yeah, so...
And then we'll do, like, super important, and then, like, other favorites, and then we'll branch out to just, like, our media discussion?
Right,
Does that sound good?
That sounds good. So, I think one of the most important, even though I didn't get to see a lot of Buffy, like, I think Willow was really important to me, because I thought I was a lesbian for a long time, and I think Willow was really the first lesbian character I got to see, like, in full action. Not like that, but you know.
Yeah. I had a really weird, because my first time watching Buffy, I was watching Buffy, like, as it was coming on.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm old.
Right. You're
so old.
So old. You got a cane
like
over there.
Week older than you.
God damn it, cat.
No, but I didn't have a lot of supervised television.
That's true. You had a lot of not supervised everything, as I understand.
So I was, but I didn't always see them, like, in order. So I had, like, this really tough, because I started watching the show, like, with Willow and Oz, and I had my first, like, even though I knew people who were lesbians growing up, my first, like, media, my first, like, representation of lesbians kind of made me not like the term, because I was so devastated that Willow and Oz didn't end up together, that it was, like, that Tara was, like, the enemy, like, because I went, like, straight from Willow, and Oz being, like, the perfect couple to Willow and Tara fighting. And it's, like, that was such a painful transition for me.
Right.
That it was, like, I thought I was anti-lesbian for a while.
Oh, no,
okay. Which, like, I eventually figured out that I didn't dislike lesbians. I disliked Tara. And then, like, as I started to see the show in order, I realized Tara was my favorite.
Oh god, I love Tara so much.
Because she was so good. And it's I just came in at a bad Tara moment.
Right, it was like an unfortunate leap. I think one of the funniest things that ever happened when it was in 5th grade, we had, like, one of the book fairs, and I bought a book, and, like, I was reading it, and, like, it, like, set it up for, like, there was, like, a prince, and, like a lady, and then, like, her bodyguard, who was also a lady, and those two were a couple, like, they were a lesbian couple, and I was so confused, because I had never been exposed to that before, and I was like, I don't understand how that works, and then I, like, got older, and I was like, oh shit, I like girls! That's how that works.
I get it.
I get it. But yeah, that was, like, I still have that book somewhere. I should maybe reread it at some point, because now I can truly appreciate the lesbian dynamic going on. But yeah, I think Willow and Tara were probably, like, the real first couple that, like, I really saw and was like, oh shit, that's like important to me. That's me.
I didn't have, like, that like, bond with them at that point, but they were also, like, my first lesbian couple.
Right, and it's like...
that I cared about.
Right, exactly. Because I feel like a lot of it, like, goes over your head Well, I mean, we also grew up when media was still not really showing, any gay relationships, especially, like, in media that was for our age group.
Yeah.
Because we were, like, children, and they were like, no gays. You can't have any gays.
And, like, it's such a weird thing, because I did grow up, like, my parents were friends with, like, a lot of gay people. I just grew up with gay people. So it was, like, I never saw, the terminology was where I started to get confused personally. Because, like, if you're exposed to something like that young, you don't see it as, like...
You don't see it as a thing.
It's not just anything weird. It's just, like, how some people are. Which is how it should be. Like,
exactly.
But, like, if you don't have that personal experience in your social group growing up, that's where media comes in, and it's really important.
Right. It was like I grew up, before, like, we started hanging out, like, most of my friend group was guys, and it was, like, never, like, nothing ever came out, because they were all straight guys.
Yeah.
I was, like, so I was sort of, my parents were never opposed to it, obviously, because they are, like, super chill, but I mean, like, I never came face to face with any of it, so it was, like, it was interesting, and then all of a sudden, like, the end of middle school and high school happened, and I was like, oh, shit, oh, I'm so gay, and now I'm officially the gay friend on so many levels. It's good. I like that. I like being that one.
Good.
I think right now, probably the most important one to me, surprise, surprise, I'm going to talk about the Adventure Zone.
What?
Again, I love Taco. Taco and Loop are so very important to me. This is a story I've told before, not on the podcast, but when me and my sister were out to eat, and we were talking about the Adventure Zone, and we were talking about characters, and I was like, yeah, I think Taco's gay. Like, I don't care what canon says, I think he's gay. And then she was like, Taco is gay. Like, the player confirmed it, and I was like, what? And she showed me the treat, and I literally started crying, like, at the table. I was so happy. So that was great. And then Loop is also great, because she's a trans lady, and she's so very, absolutely the most badass character in the cast. But they're just played, like, so, they don't make a big deal out of, like, their sexuality or their gender, because, like, they're just people, and they're living in a world where they're allowed to be that without any sort of oppression or anything, and it's like, that's so good. That's so great to me. So yeah, those are my current icons.
Nice.
I love them so much. Do you have any icons?
I do have an icon that I'd like to talk about. It's only been, like, within the last couple months that I've started, like, openly identifying as pansexual. And one of the big reasons for that is I'm in a long-term heterosexual relationship, and it was one of those things where it's like, even when I was comfortable with my sexual orientation, it was one of those things where it's like, I didn't want to... I guess it's just one of those things where it's like, you see a lot of people online, like, you see a lot of bisexual people who feel like they've been pressured to be more gay, and I didn't want it to be one of those things where it's like, I didn't want to feel pressured to be more gay than I am.
Yeah. I've encountered the same thing.
It's, like, I didn't want to deal with the, like, also explaining that I am in a monogamous heterosexual relationship. Like, I didn't want to have to justify the label, which I guess is one of the, but one of the reasons why I have, like, so I guess the media icon who means, like, the most to me would be Oberyn Martell from Game of Thrones.
Oh no, you're talking about I love Oberyn, though. Oberyn is so good.
Oberyn was, like, it was one of the things, because I I didn't want to justify the label. I also didn't care that much for a long time, because it's like, I know what I'm into, and I'm comfortable with it, so I don't need to, like, worry too much about it. But it was like, everything that came out of Oberon's mouth, I identified with so strongly. And it's like, when people, like, started, like, especially, like, my friends online started, like, talking about what good representation that was, and started praising that HBO had, like, a very openly pansexual character on Game of Thrones. It was like, this is...
And I think
something I identify with. It's something that means a lot to me, and it's maybe something that I should explore. And because I connected with him so strongly when
it. Yeah, it's like, I think Oberyn Martell is probably the best representation Game of Thrones has had.
Oh, absolutely. Because he's also, like, a minority.
Yeah.
He's like, a person of color, and he's pansexual, and he's
polyamorous.
Also,
so it's like, he sort of hits...
Which is not something that I'm, like... It doesn't reflect my current relationship, but it is also something that I believe in strongly.
Right.
As a concept.
He's very much part of a lot of minority communities, and it's so...
don't get enough representation.
Right. And it's also done so respectfully.
Yeah.
Like, there's never a point... I mean, like, obviously, like, the people have stuff to say about it, but generally the people who are putting Oberyn down are, like, Cersei and, like, her lot, and who we know are bad people.
Yeah.
And, like, Oberyn is easily one of the best characters on the show. Like,
that's the other
especially
thing,
as a person.
Is that, like, because there are so many people who aren't great people on Game of Thrones, it's like, to see such a strong character from so many minorities who is so good.
Yeah.
It's like, that just was amazing. And it's like, in a world where everyone's terrible, like, he's still coming here to defend his sister, like, 20 years after the fact. Like, he still hasn't given up on her, and that's just, like, because he cares about family.
Right.
It's like, Oberyn's, like, a fantastic...
He's wonderful.
Character. And there's the line, because, he goes, in the show, he goes to the brothel.
Right.
And there's the, like, one of the guys is, like, one of the men there is explaining his preferences, and Oberyn, like, is just, like, there's that line in there, and it's like, when it comes to war, I fight for Dorne, but when it comes to love, I don't choose sides.
Oh, it's so
it's like,
stop.
So yeah, that would be, like, my big representation. I would also say, I'd also argue, no one's arguing me.
I'm not arguing with you on anything.
On my identity things. I'd say the other, because I'm gonna just keep talking about Game of Thrones.
Do it. Do it. That's the podcast.
The other, like, because I have always identified as female, but I went through a lot of stuff growing up where I felt pressured to be less feminine, because I did sort of get the idea that being feminine was, like, counterintuitive to being strong.
Right.
And it's like, a lot of the women that I looked up to, like, in real life and in shows and stuff, like, had a lot more masculine tendencies, you know? And it was like, Buffy was one of those things where it's like, Buffy's obviously very pretty and she does care about, like, more vain things, but, like, as she gets stronger as the seasons progress, she cares less and less about those things. And because I was too young to understand that she was just growing up.
Right.
I saw it as, like, she was leaving behind, like, the more feminine aspects of herself, which was, like, but I think one of the characters who really got me out of that was Daenerys Targaryen.
Yeah.
Because it's like, she's very feminine, and she's very comfortable in being feminine.
But she's also, like, easily the strongest.
So badass, though.
Is great, because I think we talked about this a little bit before, I think in our Women in Horror Month thing, is, there's such a stigma against being feminine, because so often you'll see it being used as an insult, and, like, I also struggled with that, growing up, because, we definitely, especially, I feel like in the school we went to, there was, like, a lot of... I feel like a lot of the girls who fell into the very feminine tendencies
were bad people.
They were like really, they were bad people, and they were super mean to us also.
Yeah.
So it was like one of those things where, that on top of all the media made it seem like being feminine was wrong. And I mean, like, I finally grew out of that in high school when I was like, fuck everything. I don't care anymore. But yeah, it's so nice to see, like, strides being made to have powerful and feminine characters.
Yeah.
Like, it's so important that those two things don't automatically cancel each other out.
And it is also, it's important to, like, I wish I had seen more of that when I was a kid that was aimed for my age group.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's also stuff like Buffy where it's like those early seasons, she was both. And I misconstrued that because I didn't understand the message in the later seasons. Because it wasn't for my age group. Like,
right.
And it's one of those things, like, it was a very powerful show, and I think if I'd been a little bit older, I would have gotten those good messages earlier in my life. But that's, like, also, with shows, and I'm gonna talk about Adventure Time.
I was gonna ask you about Adventure Time.
Because it's, like, that's the kind of show I needed when I was a kid.
I would also argue the same thing with Steven Universe.
Yeah.
Is also, I'm not up to date on it at all, but, like, everything I saw, like, if I had had that as a kid, it would have been so great.
Yeah. That would have been...
But yeah, do you want to talk about Adventure Time first?
I do want, yeah, sure, I'll talk about Adventure Time. It's one of those things, I really like Marceline, obviously.
Of course,
Marceline
because
is
she's
just
great.
Like a great character. I will argue, I don't think Princess Bubblegum is the best character.
Right.
But I do like seeing them interact. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, they are both powerful in their own way. So it's like, stylistically, I think as a kid, I still would have been a lot more inclined to Marceline. And I definitely still would have been, like, stylistically, I would have been a lot more influenced that way. But I think seeing her counteracted by Princess Bubblegum, who's still all pink, lots of dresses, you know, very formal, and it's like, I think it would have been a better balance.
Right. It's not, it wouldn't have been the verses that it was in so many of the things we grew up in.
Yeah.
Because it's like...
Because they worked well together. They made a good team.
I'd say one of the ones that was sort of a negative representation from our age group, Billy and Mandy. I loved Billy and Mandy, but, like, it had that versus dynamic.
Right.
And it was, like, the real preppy, like, feminine dressing girl was always just a horrible person.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like, arguably everyone in the show is, like, a bad person. But because Mandy was a main character, we were inclined to root for her, and she, like, was actively repelled by anything feminine.
That being said, overall, I definitely agree. Overall, I think the show had a negative impact on my sense of self. But I do think that was also one of the first inklings I had of using that feminine side as power, because there was the episode Love is Evil spelled backwards.
Oh,
where she, like, gets the makeover.
That's right.
And then she destroys that boy, and I'm like, what?
Yes!
That is not where I thought this was going. I loved that, though. That was so good.
So good.
But yeah, overall, it's that thing, you have that very versus mindset.
Right.
And, like, movies, too, were really bad about that.
Movies are always really bad about that. As it turns out. Like, to this day, movies are still horrible about it. I need more romantic comedies where the popular preppy girl falls in love with, like, the butch
That would be
goth girl.
good.
That's what I need in my life, as it turns out. It's crossing the 2000, like, fucking 12 Avril Lavigne with, like, 90s Avril Lavigne.
Yes. So good.
God. That's what I need in my life.
It's important.
But yeah, so I feel like, I also feel like, because we were also talking about, like, the femininity, the heteronormativity, like, in media has been so bad for so long.
Yeah.
Because it's, like, either you're, like, a rebellious woman who doesn't conform to femininity at all, or you're, like, super feminine, and, like, that's it.
Yeah.
There's no in between. And then, like, for dudes, it's not even, like, a question. It's, like, you have to be super masculine, or else you're a coward and a joke. Which is, like, that's bad.
And that, like, we're not gonna... I don't know what you're gonna do, I guess. I'm not gonna, like, condemn all media that, like, messes up, because it has been that way for so long, but I would like to see progress in a more healthy direction. And it's like, there are shows that I love that do these kind of things, that, like, really, there's a thing, there's like, a joke in How I Met Your Mother, where it's like, Marshall is insecure ordering cocktails because they're too feminine, and it's like, you know, watching the show, I was a lot younger, and not, like, none of these things ever crossed my mind, and it's like, I kind of laughed about it or whatever, but it's like, looking back, it's like, let Marshall get his pretty pink drink if he wants. Right? Like, he's a confident man. Give him that drink.
It tastes good. There's no harm in having it. Yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like, when I'm watching something, whenever there's a joke about, like, a man being in a dress, I'm sitting there as a man in a dress, and I'm like, that's not a joke.
Yeah.
It's fine. So, like, I feel like that's part of what added to my struggle of gender identity for a long time, because, like, I'm not gonna say I ever really felt comfortable identifying as female. I mean, like, I did, because I didn't think about it. Like, I never questioned it, but I always, like, felt, like, more masculine, like, in my heart, but not as, like, not, like, outwardly.
Yeah.
I like pretty things, I like dresses, and I like frills, and I like bows, but I also like suits and flannels and jeans and, like, stuff like that. So, like, it's real hard when, like, conforming to a gender binary is very ingrained in other things. And I'm not gonna say people do it on purpose, but I think it's one of those things where a lot of it comes from just not knowing that there's, like, more, and it's like, I would also like to see it in a more healthy direction, because, like, it'd be so good.
And the other thing that I would like to say, because you brought up men in dresses, and I want to talk about women in dresses, I want to talk about fighting in dresses.
Yes.
Because that is something that also really helps me with the idea that, like, that you can be a nice, dainty woman and be a badass.
Yeah.
It's like, I love scenes and things where women do, like, kick-ass battle sequences in a dress. It's like, I love more of that.
I would love more
or
of
just
that also.
badass things generally in dress. Like, there's, from Buffy, you know, she, like, takes on the master in her prom dress, and I'm like, yes,
so good.
More of that, do that. Or, like, in Serenity, River.
Right.
Like,
she's in her cute little...
She's wearing, like, her cute little adorable outfit, and then is like, I'm gonna take down this whole bar of people because I can, and you're like,
God, yeah. So good.
They're so good. I have one other example, and I don't remember what because this was, like, not a fight sequence, because you also don't have to be a fighter, which was one of the things, is that you can have, like, really, you can be a badass and a strong person, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, Game of Thrones, surprise.
Oh, wow.
Daenerys Targaryen, at the end of season 1, wearing her wedding dress to walk into those flames and bring out those dragons, and I'm like,
so good.
Yes, more
of this, please. Why didn't
and
anyone
she
tell me?
Has, like, consistently.
Right, it's consistently, like, bringing more to the table.
Always, like, dressing like a queen and doing awesome things, and I'm like, yes.
Please. So yeah, like, when, like, things are like, I like when things do not fall into the binary.
Yeah.
Like, because it is so good, because that's how life is. There is no binary. It's all a lie. Speaking of binary, we should talk about Laverne Cox, because she's great.
Yes.
And she's beautiful, and I love her.
I would like to talk about Laverne Cox.
I think seeing, I can't remember her character's name on Orange is the New Black. Brissette. Seeing her, like, in that show, and being played by a trans woman was so important.
That was the thing, is I, like, because I wanted to talk about Orange is the New Black anyway, for representation, just generally, but, Laverne Cox especially, it was one of those things where it was like, I was watching the show, I was a big fan of the show, like, I binge-watched it a year after everyone else did.
Right.
Got on the bandwagon real late, but I was, like, binge-watching it, and it's like, Brissette was just, like, my favorite character.
Right, she's so good.
She's just such a good character, and then it was, like, finding out that she was actually, and it's like, you know, I said a lot of stuff, I had, like, that new show glow,
Right.
you know, where it was like, I'm trying to get everyone to watch the show, and I'm trying to defend the show, and it's like, the representation is so good and everything, and it's like, at the time, I had no idea that Laverne Cox was a trans woman, and it was like, finding that out, it's like, they're actually doing it, like, they're actually, it's not just, like, in a media thing, they're like, they care.
Right,
they're doing these things, and I got so excited.
It's one of those things, I've told Kat about this, but I'm going to talk about it on the podcast now to call this guy out. I got into an argument at work with a guy, because we were talking about representation. It started with Ghost in the Shell, and then, like, it pushed into the LGBT thing, and it's like, I was arguing with, like, a cis white dude, so it's like, in his 30s, so it was like, I should have known that he was not going to understand my points. But one of the things I said was, like, it's really upsetting when there's a trans character not played by a trans person, because then it's like, you're, like, if a trans woman is being played by a man, that's, like, super offensive. It's the Danish Girl, I think was the movie. It was supposed to be, like, a biopic sort of thing, but it was about a trans woman and they had it played by a man, and it's like, that really supports the idea that trans women aren't women.
Yeah.
It's like, which is bad, but, like, he didn't understand that whatsoever. He was like, oh, well, if it's a big name actor, then that's gonna get more people to see the movie, and it's like, if you need big name actors to sell your movie, it's not a good movie! Fucker! I didn't say that because I got mad.
And here's a question that I'm going to ask, because I'm ignorant.
It's okay.
I'm cis. I don't know things. What about, like, the reverse of that? What about, like, woman playing a trans woman? Is that...
I think that's better. I think top tier is a trans woman playing a trans woman.
Yeah.
Below that is a woman playing a trans woman, because that's the right gender.
Right.
I mean, like...
Here's what I'm getting at. Here's, like, my big question. Do I need to be retroactively concerned about Chandler's dad?
Maybe?
Because, like, because she was, like, she was, like, the first trans character I think I ever saw on TV.
That's fair. I mean, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I can understand, like, because obviously, like, there are stages of transitioning, but I feel like there's enough that can be done with makeup that, like, you could have a woman, but, like, I mean, in the 90s, like, I mean, like, trans representation wasn't, like, there.
Yeah. There was, like, not a lot to compare to in the time period.
Right. So, I mean, like, as long as, like, the representation was, like, respectful, that's, like, the most important part of it. So it's, like, but, like, in the 90s, we were, like, still growing. Like, people were still really learning what it was. So, like, I'd say that's probably my lowest tier of casting, is casting a man as a trans woman,
Mm-hmm.
but, like, if it's done correctly, that's, like...
It was casting a woman as a trans woman. Like, a woman played Chandler's dad.
Oh, okay.
And she identified as a woman also, I believe.
Okay.
Yes,
so...
that sounds right, yeah.
Okay, yeah, then I don't have a problem with a woman playing a trans woman.
Okay.
Because that's, like,
yeah, that's, like,
who
what
they
my
are.
question was.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, again, it's not my highest tier of casting, but I think it's above, like, because that's accurately identifying the gender.
Yeah.
You know? And the main thing about it is it doesn't contribute to the idea that trans women aren't women.
Right.
They're not men who are dressed up as women. They are women who just were not born with what is considered to be the correct genitalia, which is also bullshit. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents on that.
That was my question. That was my 90s question.
Bam! 90s questions. But yeah. No, I don't see a issue with it as long as it, like, wasn't a joke, you know.
Yeah.
That's the big part.
There was, like, that's, like, we should maybe talk about that in a different thing, because it's, like, a whole other,
Can of worms?
Can of worms.
Worms.
Because, like, there were jokes that were made about it, but, like, the overall mentality was that it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, you could tell, like, where the jokes were coming in at was from people who just were angry. Like, a lot of them, like, Chandler's mom.
Right.
Made jokes about it, and it was obvious that she was just, like, uncomfortable and bitter and lashing out.
Right.
Where it's, like, maybe they shouldn't have been made at all, but also, like, as a general... But, again, that's, like, a whole other nuanced set of complaints.
That's, like, a whole other set of topic that we
Yeah.
could go on forever about.
The 90s were flawed.
The 90s were flawed.
They were learning, but
Right.
there were some...
There were still flaws.
Definitely.
That's why they were learning. Because they had to get better. So I'm trying to think. What are other... I'm trying to think of other... See, it's hard to find, like, trans representation, because there's, like, not a lot of it. I've complained about this before.
Yeah.
I really wish there was more. And I'm sad.
That's something that I really want to talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about Liz Taylor.
Do it.
American Horror Story Hotel. Liz Taylor. There's just a character who I love so much, and he is born a man, and he, like, in the flashbacks, you get to see him in his life as a man.
Right, where he identifies.
Where he identifies as a man, he has a wife, he has a son, you know, and, like, you get to see that. But, like, we're introduced to him in the present time, where he is a she, and she's fantastic, and she's, like, comfortable in her skin. Her name is Liz Taylor, and she's just absolutely my favorite character on the show that season. She's so good. And she's so good about putting people in their place for having wrong information. Like, she never gets hostile about it, but she's very upfront, where she's like, you're wrong, this is what's up. And she's like, she never, like, backs down away from these arguments.
Good.
And it's, like, it's so good, because, like, in the flashbacks, like, when she's unsure about stuff, and we get to see, like, before she transitions into Liz Taylor, we get to see, like, all of these, things where it's, like, she has these kind of misconceptions also in her present life, and then, like, in the present timeline, she's, like, so good about shutting it down, and she has a relationship with this dude, and he's like, I don't understand, because, like, I'm not even gay, but I'm in love with you, and she's like, I'm a woman, being with me does not make you gay, and it's like, that's so good.
Thank you.
Like, she just flat out comes out and is like, don't
you dare.
And it's like, I love that so much.
It's like one of those things where people, like, will ask me is like, so, like, because I'm in a, it's not heterosexual. That's the wrong way to put my relationship. Opposite parts relationship is what I'm gonna say. So people will ask me is like, so if you're with, like, someone with the, I'm just gonna say opposite parts, because it works.
Yeah.
Does that make you, like, a gay man, or are you, like, is it, like, a heterosexual thing? And I'm like, neither! You don't, First of all, it's not your business.
Yeah, first of all,
it's not your business.
Don't ask me about my partner's genitals.
Right?
Like,
second of all, still not your business. Third of all, I'm offended you would ever refer to me as heterosexual. And fourth of all, it's not your business. So it's like, and I understand, because, like, I mean, like, I don't really understand, because, like, people, like, want to try to figure things out, but, like, you don't. If someone's gonna share that information with you, you let them bring it up.
Yeah.
Like, you don't say things like
you
that.
don't ask questions like that. That's so inappropriate.
Right.
And it's like, I'll admit to this now. I'm really guilty of asking Alan a bunch of really weird questions, but it's because I am trying to learn, and I'm comfortable with Alan.
Right.
And I've been friends with you so long. If there's if you're uncomfortable with me asking questions, I trust you to tell me.
Right. Well, I mean,
and I'll stop.
And you always preface it with I'm gonna ask you something, and you can say no if you don't want to respond. And it's but I mean, again, we've been friends for so long. It's I'm totally comfortable sharing that kind of information with you, because I mean, it's not.
And that's the thing. It's it's something you see on talk shows.
Mm-hmm.
Talk show hosts are always if you took off your clothes right now, would you look like a woman? And it's
who the hell are you?
That's not an okay thing to ask. You would never ask you'd never ask a cisgender person that on your talk show. Please don't.
Right. It's so often people want to hear about in the LGBT community, they're so obsessed with learning about the sexual aspect of it, and it's that's not your business. You would never ask a straight person this,
and it's
you shouldn't be asking me this.
It's natural to have questions and to be curious, but there's a time and a place to get answers,
and it's not on public television.
It's definitely not on talk shows.
Right. It's hold on, you son of a bitch. Oh, God. Straight people are too much for me.
But that's an important thing. Watch American Horror Story Hotel, and watch Orange is the New Black, maybe. I'm not going to say you have to, but it's as far as representation goes...
It has pretty good representation.
It has really good representation. One of the things that makes me, they have, there are things that you don't get to see a lot of, and it's one of the only shows I can think of that's it's one of the only dramas I can think of that isn't marketed as an LGBTQ show that has a higher percentage of gay characters than straight characters.
Right. It's one of those things where it's not the focus
of
the show. The focus of the show isn't the struggles of being gay or working through whatever that is. It's that's just a part of how it is, which is probably one of my favorite things. I really just gay characters there being gay and being part of the story without it being a huge focal point.
And there are they get it, there are a lot of lesbians, there are a lot of bisexuals, there's a lot of stuff going on like that, but then there's also there are more specific things. One of the things, there are two characters on the show in one of the later seasons who are probably, how did they describe it on the show? Polymorphically perverse, I think was the term they used on the show, which is questionable, but it's a demographic that you don't get to see a lot of. So it was it was really interesting.
It's it's got a lot going for it. So I mean it's one of those things when something does have representation, I feel people hold it to impossible standards.
Yeah.
They're well, if they're going to have a character, it needs to do everything right. And it's this is... There's got to be some give to it. So, I mean, even shows that are really good about it are sometimes gonna, slip up a little bit. But everything does. Nothing is perfect. And just because something has a higher percentage of representation doesn't mean it's going to be perfect all the time.
Yeah. And one other character I really, really want to talk about is Paul from 30 Rock.
Yes,
He's
you were so
good.
excited about this in the car.
I wish I had looked up exactly, because Jenna introduces him one time by, like, all of his, labels.
So it's
And
like,
it was like
when you have to introduce me to a room of people.
Yeah, she comes in and she's like, "This is Paul. He's a bigenitalia, gender dysmorphic pansexual," and it's like that's just like how she introduces him, and I love it so much. But he's just like he's a good. She meets him at a Jenna Maroney lookalike contest that
beautiful.
She loses to him.
Oh my god.
Like, first of all, that's just a fantastic way to meet someone, I think. But it gets in, it starts as kind of like a joke almost, where you're not sure if they're kind of making fun of it or whatever. But it's like, as he's on the show, because he's a recurring character after that, and as he's on the show more, it like really opens up to the fact that these alternative lifestyles, which goes into like his preferences beyond sexuality,
right?
Like, because he's into some weird stuff, but it goes into like how it's okay if alternative lifestyles do make you happy,
right? And
they get into it's okay that he cross dresses. It's okay that he is a man who identifies as you never know quite what he identifies himself as gender-wise.
But he doesn't seem to.
But he like
mind male pronouns.
He doesn't mind male pronouns. And it like they show that it's okay that he's like part of the gay community without like even though he is in what many would describe on a base level as a heterosexual relationship. Right. And it's like he's also cool because he doesn't get like he never gets offended or like worked up by the labels, which is just like. He's just, like, a cool dude, anyway. And, like, a representation on an NBC sitcom of all things.
Of all things. So that one term, so is he intersex, then?
I think.
Probably.
Is what, that's what they imply.
Okay.
Like, cool. Again, it's one of those things, like, it kind of changes throughout the show, and nothing's ever confirmed.
Obviously,
it just
because it's not really our
terminology. But yeah, it's none of our business.
Right. That's another really underrepresented group, which is part of the reason I'm so intent on destroying the binary, because the binary has never existed.
Yeah.
But however, I'm not super familiar with that part of the community. Yeah. So like until I have like I don't have any specific examples or anything, but like I'm excited when I see like. That kind of representation, because it's like, that's so cool.
It's just like...
That's something I need to work on.
Yeah. It's good. It's like... And that's another good thing about seeing characters that are underrepresented in the media, because it encourages you to work on that kind of stuff as well.
Right.
I wasn't going to talk about... I didn't have plans to talk about this. I lied. There's one more character that I am going to bring up. The Dean from Community.
Yeah!
Because they go for so many seasons without ever... Like, he dresses as a woman a lot, and he has, like, a lot of inclinations toward, like, specific men.
Right.
But they never... They go so long without addressing if, like, what his orientation is or how he identifies. And then there's this one episode... And, oh god, what was the line? Oh god, it was so good.
There's something about, I like, what do you identify as, or like...
Yeah, they were trying to get him to, like, because they were trying to get him to come out as gay, and he was like, they were trying to get him to come out as, like, their, token gay guy.
Right.
And he wouldn't, and, like, he was uncomfortable with it, and, like, he kind of struggled with it, and you thought he was, like, struggling with being gay. But then at the end, he does this thing, and he's like, I've never been a normal anything, and gay doesn't even begin to cover it. And
that's
like,
me!
That's me! And it's like, when he finally, like, when he put an end to the struggle, and you thought he was, like, it was gonna be, like, one of those coming out moments, and he was coming out as, like, more gay than everyone had thought the whole time. It's like, that is...
that's my life story.
So good.
That reminded me of, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The chief on there is gay, and he's so good. I love everything about him. I haven't seen a whole lot of the show, but I do really enjoy it, and, like, I really, there was, like, there's a gift set I saw, and it was, like, he was talking about the first time he met his, partner's parents, and he was, like, super embarrassed because, like, he misnamed, like, a classical, piece of music, by, like, two, like, by one number, and he was like, and they're still mad at me about it, and he's like, and the person he was talking to is like, what about the music? And he's like, well, yes, that and they're huge homophobes, but that doesn't matter. It's like, so it's like, he just let the fact that, like, they're homophobic just slide off, and he was like, this is my issue that I have. I don't care about the other thing. That's their issue.
So good.
And then I also want to talk a little bit about Steven Universe, about Ruby and Sapphire.
Oh, of course.
Because they're so cute. It's so nice because it's just, like, one of those things where it's, like, the first time you see them, like, separated, and they, like, meet back up, they're so happy, and, like, you can literally, like, I don't know if this is spoilers, because Steven Universe has been out for so long at this point, but I mean, like, the love, you can literally see it. Like,
Yeah.
it's so great, and it's just absolutely the most casual thing in the world, because it's like, yep, these are two girls that are in love. That's for damn sure. And then it's like, it just goes on, and then it proceeds to have one of the most badass fight scenes. And it's like, this is so good! I love it. It's like, oh, yes.
I lied, there is a lot.
There's
more
more!
I want to talk about.
You found more!
I did. I want to talk about, Titus and Mike.
Oh, yeah!
Kimmy Schmidt. There's the construction worker catcalling a girl scene.
Right.
But the girl is Kimmy Schmidt, so she doesn't understand what's happening, and she responds to him, and she's, like, really friendly about it, or whatever, but he takes it, and he looks at his life, and he realizes that he catcalls women because he's uncomfortable with himself because he's gay, and in denial about it.
Right.
So he comes out, and he ends up dating Titus over, like, the course of events, and it makes me so happy because he comes from, like, a Catholic family, and they're deeply religious, you know.
Of course.
And he takes Titus over to dinner, and he's gonna come out to his family, and Titus is like, he's such a theatrical person, and he's like, I've got glitter, we can do, like, a song and dance number, it's gonna be so good, and he prepares a speech because he thinks everyone in Mike's family is gonna be, like, really against Mike coming out, and Mike's like, you know, I'm gay, this is my boyfriend, and he just, like, spits it out, and the dad he gets quiet for a minute, and he's like, you know, I read that, like, 1 in 7 kids are gay, or what, I don't remember what the statistic was, but he's like, and I've had 7 kids, so that makes sense. I mean, like, are you happy being gay? And Mike's like, yeah, and he's like, well, let's eat some dinner. It's like, that's, like, the whole thing. It's like,
oh, yeah.
But it's just so good.
Coming out is fun. I came out to my parents several times. Which was great because it was met half the time with, yeah, we had a feeling. And it was like, come on, give me something here. The only one that actually surprised them was when I came out as trans. But then they, like, my mom had a lot more trouble adjusting than my dad did. But, you know, we're all chill now. Everyone calls me by my name. Because it's my name. Legally. Haha. Is it about time to move on to the how-to section, or do you have more?
One more. Just
one more.
I swear this is the last.
It's
one
okay.
More. I want to, because we had talked. He's one I actually did mean to bring up earlier when we were talking about bisexual representation and how there's, like, pressure to be more gay
if you
identify as bisexual. So I want to talk about Daryl from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Because, like, when he realizes, he goes through a little bit of a thing where you think maybe he thinks he might be gay, and he kind of struggles with it at first, and he's like, I don't understand how I could be gay. I've been with women. I had a wife. We were in love. You know, I liked her body. And then finally, he's like in a gym class, and he's like looking at the men's butts, and then he's also looking at the females' butts, and he's like, I'm bisexual, I figured it out. And then he has like a coming out song about like how it's okay to like men and women.
God, it's so good.
And it's like, it's so good. He ends up like, he's in a relationship for a while with another guy, and they're really cute. They're like one of my favorite gay couples. And then he also he goes to a sperm bank in this last season, and the woman, the sperm bank hands him a catalog for women before he goes in, and he's like, can I have one with men in it? And she's like, I'm so sorry. And so like she gives him one with men in it, and she goes to take the other one back, and he's like, I would like to keep both. And she's like, well, that's good. And he's like, thank you for your professionalism. And it's like, he's just so cute. He's just like so comfortable.
That's so
being
sweet.
bisexual, and it's like it's like a smaller. I feel like it's not as big of an issue as some of the things that we've talked about today, but it's like, you really, when you see representation that's that healthy for bisexuals, you realize you really don't get to see enough of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like,
one of the biggest offenders of this was the Glee. Glee was horrible.
Yeah.
Like, every time bisexuality came up, it was always treated as a joke, and it's like, hey, man, there's a reason I stopped watching you. You're a shitty show. But yeah, it's like one of those things where we've had several discussions about this, about there's so much gatekeeping for bisexuals and pansexuals and anyone who identifies otherwise that likes both men and women, because it's like, well, you gotta choose a side eventually, and it's like, no, I don't.
yeah.
I don't have to choose anything. There's no... what do you think the B stands for? Doesn't stand for your bitch ass, that's true. So
we
like,
need shirts that say that.
the B doesn't stand for your bitch ass. I like that. That's our new Toxic Bubblegum shirt, available at betterbundobook.com. But yeah,
It's so good.
it's so good.
So yeah.
Please, more healthy bisexuals.
That was something I wanted to talk about with the bisexuals, because Daryl is just so good.
Well, that does seem like a good place to transition into talking about
Yes.
writing. Make your characters gay.
Yeah.
Do it.
If you're ever like looking at your story and you're like, I'm worried about representation in this, I personally suggest that you text Alan.
Text me personally.
Come
comment on this video.
You can reach him at
betterbundobook.com.
No, I was working on this horror thing, and the whole premise, I kill off like 90% of the population immediately.
Right.
It's like the whole premise for this, because it's like one of those super plague type stories.
Right.
It's like a very Captain Trips kind of thing. And I was talking to Alan about it, and I had like a gay character who survives like the first round of this attack. And by the time, I'm not kidding, like within 30 minutes of texting Alan, he had convinced me that everyone that survives is gay.
Listen, it's important.
Like, all of the... But it is something, like, it's a fun story and everything, but it kind of leads into, you are more likely to... Like, people are just more naturally inclined to write characters that they identify with strongly.
Right.
So if you're not... But it's important to check yourself sometimes, and if you can't do that, have friends in the community who will help you.
Also,
arguably too much.
Oops.
Sometimes. No, but like who are looking for those things, because they'll know what you're missing.
Right.
If you are missing representation.
I'm not gonna lie, I convinced Kat to keep a lot of her gay characters alive.
Yeah.
Because that's my job.
Wait, yeah. It's my job to kill everyone off, and it's like, sometimes when we start working on projects together, too, you'll be like, you can't kill this lesbian.
No killing the lesbians. It's one of my things, I'm very against, when you're writing, like, if you're uncomfortable, like, or not familiar with writing for, like, the community, definitely check out, like, trope lists of like tropes that happen in media, so you can also see what you should be trying to avoid
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons I keep Kat from killing off gay characters is because I'm really against the kill your gays trope and bury your gays trope, because I'm tired of it. Because, like, I swear to God, like, every lesbian I ever see gets killed off. And it's like, no.
And
Don't do that. Tara, come back to me. I have
Sometimes
never
they
healed.
don't kill enough. Sometimes they stop one short, though, because of Kennedy.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. Again, with the abusive lesbian couples.
Yeah, I hate that.
Why can't you...
Anyway.
But yeah, it's like, so some tropes to avoid are like barrier gays is a real bad one. Like making trans women like overly violent is a big one. Making trans men overly feminine. And these are just like general things, because obviously there are people who are like that.
Yeah.
But if it's your only representation for that group, that's when it gets bad.
We went to that LGBTQ in representation in video games panel, and I felt specifically like I was being called out, because they went through that whole thing about how, like, it's a big trope that pansexuals are, like, also overtly sexual.
Right.
And they made such a big deal about that one particular trope, and it's like, I understand that probably shouldn't be a trope, and we need other kinds of pansexual representation, but also that's me.
So that's you.
Like, hey, some of us are like that, dude.
Well, it's funny, because I'm also a very feminine trans man. Not man. I'm one man.
You're trans man?
I'm a trans man. I am a furry, but that's a different can of worms. So the term man there is questionable. But no, so it's like, I'm dressed very femininely, and like wear makeup and all that stuff. So I mean, like, yeah, those demographics definitely do exist. It's just when that's the only kind of representation, especially if you're writing multiple stories and you consistently have that one character with that one trope going on, that's when it's bad.
Yeah.
So ideally, if you're going to have someone that falls into that demographic, first of all, make them multidimensional.
Yeah.
And,
like, if they're a good character, it is going to be less obvious that they do fall into tropes.
Right.
Like with Oberyn is very that overtly sexual trope.
Everything about him is great.
It's not the main thing going on.
Right, that's not his only thing.
Yeah.
Because the big thing is honor for him.
Yeah.
That's, like, his huge thing. And then, like, the also being very sexually active is just another part of his personality. It's not his whole personality.
Right.
I think, so yeah, those are, like, other ones. It's like, there's also the lesbian who hates all men. That's another trope.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've met many lesbians in my life, and while most of them are annoyed with men because I don't need to explain it, but, like, no one's ever been like, I hate all men.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Hold on.
And it's
that
like,
doesn't exist.
I think it does.
I think it does.
Like, I actually, like, I met a lesbian like that, but it's out of, like, a whole group of lesbians. Like,
right.
So, yeah.
Right. It's like, again, it's the only personality trait.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Because, I mean, like, obviously people are going to be very hostile. In some cases. That's just how some people are. But as long as it's not the defining personality trait, then it's...
Yeah.
Then you can be a little more...
That's the dangerous thing, like, with tropes, is that they do all come from somewhere.
Right.
Like, with tropes and, you know, stereotypes and some biases, not all of them, but, like, a lot of these, like, recurring themes come from a real place. Like, this has happened, it can happen. It might be happening to you, but it's not like get a diverse group of characters in there and make sure everyone's three-dimensional.
Right.
Focus on these things.
It's like one of the things we were talking about in the car on the way over is sometimes also no representation can be as harmful as bad representation.
Yeah.
Because, like, just erasure of the community as a whole. It's one of the things I'm really annoyed about in Game of Thrones,
Mm-hmm.
is that they just don't touch on the fact that Daenerys is bisexual at all.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
That's something
Hey!
in the Game of Thrones books and A Song of Ice and Fire, lesbians are very much a thing, but it's like, it's just kind of one of those things no one talks about, but everyone knows is
Right.
a fact. Like, there are high ladies having affairs with their handmaidens, and it's just like it's just something that is done quietly in private, and it's like, but they also wrote it completely out of the show. And one of the big things is that after Drogo dies, Daenerys has kind of an ongoing thing with one of her, I was gonna say with her translator, but that's not true.
Yeah.
Because in the show, the translator was like an amalgamation of
Of
other characters. But yeah, she has an affair with, like, an ongoing affair with the same woman for
A
while, and they just like, and Cersei is in like a secret lesbian relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and that's more than, because the woman doesn't like work for her. It's not like a something they do privately at night kind of thing. It's
Right.
like they're meeting up in secret to have sex, and they're like making plans about the future and like flirting with each other or whatever, and that's just not in the show.
Right.
Like, she's not a character in the show. She's written out completely, and we never address the fact that Cersei has been with women.
Right. I feel like so much of the women loving women has been written out of the show.
Yeah.
And that's always... They exist! Damn it! Please!
But, and that's something that it really irks me with Game of Thrones, because even though they've written out lesbian relationships from the books, they have included a love arc between Missandei and Grey Worm, and it's like I'm not opposed to them being together or anything, but it does bother me that we're forcing yet another heteronormative relationship into the show instead of, especially because Missandei kind of represents one of the lesbians who was written out. So
So it's like that just is just erasing it completely. So that's another thing to avoid. If you're adapting something, please don't write out the representation, because that's really shitty.
And it's like, even if the representation is bad and you're adapting something, fix the representation
Right,
instead
you
of
can
getting
make it
rid
good.
of it. Yeah.
Like, that's so...
Cersei's lesbian relationship, not so healthy. Should they have written it out? Probably not.
They could have
Absolutely not.
made it better, or at least established that it's more unhealthy.
Yeah.
Like, they could have worked with it. Which, like, work with your gays.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's also, like, it's something that I do also like about the books, is that there are some, when you're writing in certain cultures, there are, we don't have, like, they don't always have the same terminology for things that we have, but it doesn't mean that those things didn't exist.
right.
So it's like, they never use the term asexual in the books, they never use any trans terminology, but there are characters you can see who are struggling with these things, even though they don't have the words to connect to it. Like Brienne, you know, she identifies in the book as a man, like, not canonically, because there's like no way for her to say that in the time frame that she's in, but it's like, she sees herself as a man, and it's something that they address in the book, you know, and they kind of, like, they hint around it in the show, like, it's obvious that because they have that conversation where they're talking about, like, where they call her Lady Brienne, and she has, like, a really tough time with it. And Cersei, like, kind of calls her out on it, and she's like, if you're the daughter of a lord, you're a lady, and Brienne's like, yes, kind of. So, like, they kind of hint that it's something she's uncomfortable with, but they don't get into it as much, where it's like,
Right.
you know.
Like, she is non-binary.
Yeah.
Or he, which... I don't know. I haven't read the books.
Yeah,
it's
like, she still uses female pronouns, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, she grows up in a culture where she doesn't really have a choice.
Right.
And, like, when people mistake her for a man, you can always see that makes her more comfortable.
Right.
So it's...
God, I wish that were me.
But yeah, and so it's like one of those things where it's like, even if you're working in in a fantasy setting or a sci-fi setting where those terms don't exist, there's still things that people have always struggled with and probably will always, there will always be questions. You know?
And it's like, or it's like just have representation. Like, it's one of those things, like the best advice you can sort of give for writing a character who is that is just write them like you would any other character. Just, like, adjust who they like or what pronouns they use accordingly. It's like, if you ever feel doubtful about that, like, put out an ask or, like, a tweet or, like, talk to somebody you trust and be like, hey, I'm writing this thing, I need help with this thing, can people give me some advice on how to do it?
Yeah.
Like, because I would be so happy if people, like, actually asked my opinion on how to write a trans character instead of just doing it and doing it wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, please. Please, we exist in the real world.
Yeah.
The struggle is real.
It can be difficult. It can be difficult to see yourself not represented well. It can be really stressful to write outside of your comfort zone when it comes to representation. And it's something that I encourage everyone to try, regardless of whether or not it makes you uncomfortable. Don't just, like, start publishing stuff if you, like, don't know if it's offensive. I'm not gonna...
Right.
That's bad. But it's, like, try new things. Try to tell stories that represent people other than yourself. Get feedback from relevant source. And, like, when you're putting together a team of, like, beta readers or... I don't know what the equivalent of that is for artists. Beta viewers.
Yeah, I get critiques. Like, people who give you critiques.
When you're finding a circle of people who will look at your work, make sure you get as diverse a group. Like, you want to get people that you trust, but you also want to make sure that you have people who do represent things
that you are not a part of.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, like, and it's so easy, like, I follow a lot of blogs on Tumblr that are dedicated to diversity and, like, making sure, like, they answer questions that, like, people send in when they're writing, or it's, like, they'll comment on certain states of things, or, like, it's, like, these people are out there, and there are many people who are happy to provide resources and do provide resources.
Yeah.
So it's, like, you just go to Google, dude.
And it can be embarrassing to ask. Like, it can be embarrassing to admit that you don't know things, but I think, and it's not true in all cases, but I think the majority of people who see that you are asking questions and that you are making that effort are more likely to support your work also.
Right. It's like when you are clearly making an effort and trying to do things respectfully, people are going to respect that and they're going to respect you.
Yeah.
So it's like, you just gotta go for it, you know? Don't be scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have anything else? Is there anything else to...
I feel like there was one other thing, and I, for the life of me, don't remember what it was.
No. We talked about tropes. We talked about writing outside your comfort zone. We talked about gays.
Another thing, I guess, that I will kind of add on to this is that, like, collaborations can be good. I have, like, we were kind of talking about this a little bit in the car, not to this specific scenario, but, like, I've had an idea for a thing, that, like, the main character is trans, and I've been, like, it was something I really wanted to tackle, but I don't have that experience. And I immediately went to Alan and was like, will you work with me on this thing?
Yes.
Because that's like an insight that I don't have. And it's like, I didn't want it to keep me from doing the thing, but I also didn't want to screw up
the thing. Right, it's like, collaboration should be, like, so useful. Because, again, it's that having a perspective that you don't have. I think it's really important, like, we talked about the circle before. It's really important that you have a constructive group and not an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Because echo chambers can be one of the most detrimental things to your work. Because then you're not getting any growth out of it. And things that are bad are just going to get worse. And things that are good will probably not grow.
And it's something, like, if you're looking into beta reading for someone, it's also important, like, it can be really helpful. It's more fun to read stuff that you know you're going to enjoy, but as a beta reader, it's a lot more useful if you are looking for problems.
Right.
And it's something that I, like, every now and then, like, I have friends whose work I don't always enjoy the most, but it's like, I know I'm being more useful sometimes.
Right.
Than...
That critical aspect is going to be really beneficial to them in the end.
Yeah. Even though it's, like, not fun to say.
Right. You don't want to say it out loud, but it's
like you're friends with people and you don't want to, like, be picking apart their stuff.
But sometimes you gotta.
Yeah.
Oh, no. That's just life. That's just life sometimes.
So yeah.
I think that's a pretty good
we did good.
Wrap up.
Yeah.
For everything. So yeah. Don't bury your gaze. Keep your gaze strong, watered, and healthy. It's good.
I think that should be the title.
Keep your gaze strong, watered, and healthy. I like it.
Good.
Followed with a t-shirt that says, "The B does not stand for your bitch ass." This is very good. We got two good episode titles here, so that's gonna be good. All right, well, this has been Unsolicited Advice. Once again, I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
And we will see you later.